Hi, welcome to On My Heart. It's a series of programs in which we will look into creating our own art masterpieces. My name is Buffy, and I'll be your hostess, but I have to tell you this: God is the master artist. All we can ever do is reflect the beauty of what He has made. And we reflect it in many different ways and many different styles. So this morning, we're going to look at a lot of different art styles so that you can see there's a great spectrum of artists and styles, and perhaps you can find your artistic voice somewhere in all of that. We all have a unique style, and the trick is to find it. And looking at different things will help you find your creative voice. So let's get started. We were created in God's image. When you really think about that, what is God like? Well, He's the creator of everything. So He gave us creativity. And that is a special gift from God. And all children are naturally creative. Did you notice that? They all love to draw, paint, color, and they do it just for the fun of it. But when you get to be about 8 or 10 years old, right around that age where you start becoming your own self-critic, and you think your artwork's not good enough, it's not wonderful, and teenagers are thinking, oh, this is dorky, and things like that, we lose that creativity that God gave us. And we're missing out on all kinds of wonderful experiences. So as we look into art, I'm encouraging you, focus on the fun, because art is wonderful. It's fun doing it. And so I'm not going to really give you step-by-step paintings like our friend Bob Ross does. And he's wonderful. But I want to give you some basic principles that are going to apply to everything you paint so that it will enable you to paint what's really on your heart, and you'll know what to do. And so one of the important things is not just to follow a leader or a book. You need to find what's called your own voice. And your voice in painting becomes your style. And the way you paint is going to be unique to you. So it's best not to copy someone else because that's their voice. To find your own voice is to find a way to enjoy painting and have a good time while you do it. Now, there's many, many styles of art. So we're going to look at a few of them right now. And I think you're going to enjoy seeing the wide range of artistic styles and possibilities, and you'll find your voice somewhere in all of that, because your style is going to fit in somewhere. So Let's go ahead and look at some of these slides we have for you. It's called Artists and Styles, this little PowerPoint. And the first person we're going to look at is Rembrandt. He is a master. He was in the 1600s. He became the master of lighting. And as you can see from this picture, his lighting is interesting. You know, he has focus on the face, and it just brings out all these qualities. Now, this is his self-portrait, but his work was very dramatic. As he painted, you'll notice the great contrast between the lights and darks. And he painted real-life scenes that told a story. This one looks like the man, he's probably, sadly, on his way out. It looks like he has grandchildren and his son by his side, and it's a very touching painting. It's one of Rembrandt's most famous, and you can see his drama there, that he uses the lighting to create the drama. Now, by contrast, let's look at a modern day artist. His name is Jackson Pollock. You may have heard of him. His work is quite famous, and this is what he does. Amazing. It looks like chaos, and this is his voice. What do you think? There is something interesting about his use of color, and this is him at work. He literally throws the paint at the canvas. Sometimes he works on the floor, as this picture shows, dripping paint all over. Other times he will take the brush and splash it onto the camera, onto the canvas. And whatever happens, happens. It's got drip marks, it's got swirls, who knows. But he became wildly famous during probably the 50s and 60s. Here's one more. People would go and stand and stare at this art and see all kinds of things. Now, this is the most famous painting in the world, Mona Lisa. I know you've all seen her somewhere. She's even used in a lot of commercials, but this is the most famous painting really in the world. If you go to the Louvre Museum in Paris, you'll see it hanging there with crowds of people always around it. It's a very small painting, really. And I was amazed when I saw it because, it's nice, but it's just for some reason, it's the most famous of all. Everyone has heard of it. Now, here's a friend. This is a self-portrait. Isn't he handsome? He's called the father of Cubism. And this is Pablo Picasso. I'm sure you've all heard of him. He was another man, though, who painted pictures of his girlfriends. He painted lots of his girlfriends. This is one. He has many, many interesting lady friends. Very interesting. You don't see these girls walking around the streets. But art is in the eye of the beholder. You always keep that in mind now. Now, many artists like to paint self-portraits, and this is Vincent van Gogh. He painted like many, many self-portraits. I think of all his different moods. He was a very moody person, And when you read about his story, you'll see he did some quite odd things. But he also painted landscapes, and I love his style. You know, it's very different. It's not like your everyday landscapes. And he painted trees. Don't you love his trees? They're all swirly and odd looking. But that just goes to show you that art is a style. You know, if your style of painting trees is unusual, bless you. He painted his room and his chair. He painted everyday things. He painted the ladies picking hay, and he just painted things around him. He painted the cafes at night. He painted the starry skies. I love the starry skies. I just love them. And he painted flowers. His most famous is the sunflowers. Here is another artist famous for flowers. And this is our friend Monet and his water lilies. You've probably seen images of this too. They're often used commercially as well. So Monet loved water lilies. He painted water lilies. He painted so much water lilies. These paintings in a gallery in Paris are 12 feet high and 42 feet long. These are huge paintings. And I've heard that they had to put the paintings in first before they finished the walls of this gallery. He's really, really into his water lilies. He painted a self-portrait of himself when he was young. A lot of images of him are a full gray beard and long gray hair. But he became famous in the 1800s, and he is called the father of Impressionism. That's right when the camera was invented. And so artists were no longer needed to be the camera. And Monet was one of the pioneers of painting things that only give the impression of something real, not that perfect reality that you see from earlier artists. He gave the impression. He also loved haystacks, and he painted them. He more focused on color than detail, and very little detail in his haystack pictures, but he's done a whole series of haystacks. I think he likes them as much as water lilies, and these are not the kind of haystacks you eat, which are delicious if you've ever eaten one, but these are real haystacks, and he painted them in every different kind of light, in the dawn, at dusk, and full daylight. And one thing about Monet you'll see, he painted what he loved. And he painted a lot of what he loved. But that was what was on his heart. He even did haystacks in the snow. Now, they had a friend. Van Gogh and Monet were of the same era, and so is their friend named Paul Gauguin. And he loved to paint Tahiti, so that's what was on his heart. He especially loved the beautiful Tahitian ladies, and he painted a lot of them. Mostly all his paintings are of the ladies, by the way. And this is an actual picture of his wedding. He married a lovely Tahitian girl, and he spent the rest of his life living and painting in Tahiti. Notice the bright colors and the blue skies, and just something so cheerful about his paintings. He had lived in Europe with the other artists, but Tahiti to him was a breath of fresh air. He loved it there. Now, this artist didn't paint anything at all. He painted boxes, colored boxes, and they're huge. You can see him standing in this slide next to one of his paintings. They're huge, and they're in the New York Metropolitan Museum of Modern Art. You can see them there, all his boxes. There's a whole room full of his boxes. And the boxes can have some meaning, and you put the meaning there. If there's a meaning, we don't know what his meaning was, but there must be a meaning. So we'll give him that. Snaps to him for his boxes. Now, Salvador Dali, this guy painted with precision, the precision of the master artists long ago, but he painted bizarre, surrealistic things. And this one is his melting clocks, which he's very famous for. And you can see he's really into it. Now, he had a spiritual side, and I love this. His spiritual side, he painted the Last Supper, but in his surrealistic style. Very interesting painting. And he also painted this beautiful one of the cross. It's lovely. Now, one of my best painters of biblical themes is Harry Anderson. And Harry paints Jesus so realistically, you could speak to him and you expect him to speak back. He's so realistic. This slide has a picture of Harry painting, and he painted depictions of Jesus' birth, his baptism, his ministry. I'm sure in your churches and Christian publications you've seen these images because they're famous worldwide. I love these. I love Harry's Jesus. Many artists paint Jesus in their own way because Jesus to them is beautiful in their own way. Now, my most favorite picture of all Jesus pictures is this one. I love it. It's painted by my 3-year-old grandson, and I watched him doing this. He put his little heart into this painting, and I said, "Who is that?" And he looked at me with surprise as if I didn't know. He said, "Well, it's Jesus." Of course I should have known. So I put this one in to encourage you. You're never too young to be a great artist. And you're never too old either. Grandma Moses, which you've heard that name before, started painting at 78 years old. She became world famous very quickly. Her paintings are called primitive because they're very simple paintings. You can see little scenes of the town where she lived, and she painted what she knew and what she loved. That's a really good key. Think of that when you start your paintings. And recently I was on a trip to Yosemite, which is one of the most beautiful places on earth. Go there when you get a chance because the beauty is unbelievable. But there was an artist there. There's a small gallery. His name is Thomas Hill, and he lived and worked in Yosemite for more than 20 years in the early 1800s. And what a job. He got to live there and paint everything he loved there. And magnificent views of God's creation. And these are some of the scenes he loved most, the waterfalls. Oh, you have to hike around Yosemite. It's just gorgeous. And I want to encourage you to paint what you love. There's beautiful scenes right around where you live. Go to them and find them and make sketches or take a lot of pictures, because I am going to show you in another lesson how to get your pictures onto the canvas without being a great drawer. You don't have to be a great artist to paint a beautiful picture. And so I'm going to give you tips of how to do all these kind of things and principles that will apply to everything. So that's what's on my heart today. Okay, as you saw, each one of us is totally unique in our own way. And God gave us the creative talents, and we can use them to glorify Him, to enjoy the gift He has given us. But each one has its own way of doing it. And so I encourage you to own your own way. Don't try to copy somebody else, just be yourself. You can learn techniques, but you do it your way. And remember, you're never too young or too old to be a good artist. So next week, we're going to look at art supplies that you're going to need for this series. And they're going to be very affordable, so you don't have to spend your life savings. So bring a list, a paper or a list, and also we're going to post the list so that you can take a screenshot of everything you're going to need for getting started painting. We'll see you then. Until then, you are on my heart.